There's a reason that you can read book after book after book about abuse and still feel confused or trauma bonded or stuck in your head. And it's not because the information in the books is wrong. It's because a lot of it never actually names what happened to you. Now, I work in abuse recovery and I've lived this myself, and I've read more books in this space than I could possibly count. And the ones I want to share today are the ones that are consistently helping women to stop spiraling and stop self-doubting and finally understanding the pattern that they were trapped in. So if you're looking for books that actually move the needle, not just explain abuse to you in theory, stay with me, because once you see the pattern, it's going to become really hard for you to unsee it. And this is where things actually start to shift. Now, I'm Lisa Sonni. I work with women who are either still inside abusive relationships or trying to recover after leaving them. And I've lived this myself. And I didn't leave with an ounce of clarity or confidence. I left trauma bonded, confused, doubting myself, broke, looking for answers that were never being given honestly until I started reading. And I have figured out which books help and which books don't. Over the years, I've gotten 7 certifications. I've studied abuse dynamics deeply. I've worked with thousands of women who sound a lot like you, smart and aware and capable, still unraveling at night. So nothing I'm sharing here is abstract, and I'm not a motivational speaker. This is grounded in lived experience and long-term work. So if this kind of abuse education helps you feel better and makes you really feel educated, then I want you to hit subscribe, because this space is all about telling the truth, not comfort. So here's something that I want you to notice as we kind of move through the books. Most of the confusion that you carry has not actually come from not knowing enough. It came from being trained to doubt what you knew, right? That training doesn't happen in a single argument or like one bad moment with him. It happens slowly over time, and it gets reinforced by the person hurting you, not to mention the culture that minimizes all of this abuse. That's why the right book doesn't hype you up, gonna calm you down, doesn't tell you who to become. It tells you what actually happened. And that shift is what allows your nervous system to actually stop scanning constantly, right? And it may not be because the pain just goes away, but because you finally see what's really going on. Character Disturbance by Dr. George Simon was one of the very first books that actually kind of fundamentally changed how I think. There's a line in his book that I still remember the very first time I read it. He actually says, "Manipulators know exactly what they're doing." That sentence is small, right? But it matters a lot because it dismantles this idea that it's accidental or unconscious. Dr. Simon in his book focuses on character, right? Not a diagnosis. That distinction is very critical. It removes this sort of endless search for the hidden wound behind the behavior, and it puts the responsibility right where it belongs, on his shoulders. Now, I have filmed 2 conversations with Dr. Simon on the myths around narcissism, and his book aligns directly with that work. He also wrote In Sheep's Clothing, which many people recognize, but Character Disturbance was the one that actually helped me stop explaining abuse in ways that just kind of protected the abuser, and it's infuriating. So when you stop doing that, your thinking is going to clear up really fast. Now, on my shelf, that book is right next to The Nature and Nurture of Narcissism by Dr. Peter Salerno for a reason. Dr. Salerno also appeared in those conversations with Dr. Simon, and his work really deepens the understanding, but it's not going to soften your reality. There's a line in his book that captures the entire framework. This is one of the best books I have ever read on the topic of narcissism. He writes, "Empathy is not missing, it's withheld." That sentence reframes everything, right? Now, his book, it explains how narcissistic traits form and kind of harden, but he doesn't turn them into excuses. He totally dispels the myth that it's coming from trauma or environment. He shows why accountability doesn't stick and why women stay trapped trying to reach someone who doesn't even want to be reached. Now, he's written other books too, and they're important. One is called Traumatic Cognitive Dissonance, Cruelty by Nature, but this one, The Nature and Nurture of Narcissism, really focuses on the mechanism. And the mechanism is what is finally going to stop making you do all this endless bargaining. Next is Why Does He Do That by Lundy Bancroft. And let's just say it, right? It is literally one of the most referenced books in abuse recovery for a reason. It's over 400 pages, but basically it answers the question, why does he do that? And he says, abuse is not a loss of control, it's a way of gaining control, right? That's so important to see. The book names abuse as belief-driven, as intentional. It's not reactive. We need to stop thinking that they're just being provoked and reacting. That's the myth that they want you to believe, because it benefits them. It also includes very specific resources for abused women of color, which matters because abuse doesn't exist outside of systems, culture, and bias. Many women read this book and realize for the first time that what they experienced wasn't a relationship issue. It was a power issue. The amount of women that say they read that book and it changed everything, you have got to read that book. Once it lands, all the confusion is going to go away. Another book, which is so underrated, is called How He Gets Into Her Head by Dawn Hennessy. Don't sleep on this book. It explains psychological abuse in such plain language. There's a line in this book that actually captures emotional abuse and why it feels so friggin' destabilizing. He writes that confusion is not a side effect, it's the strategy. And that sentence explains why you feel like foggy and confused and why your reactions are being used against you and why you're constantly questioning your own perception. This book really helped me understand why abuse feels so personal, so precise, because it is. It's tailored, it's customized for you. And once you see it, you're not going to ask yourself why you weren't stronger or smarter. You're going to start seeing how somebody learned exactly what buttons to press, right? And that's going to pull you out of the shame. Shame is one of the strongest things that points you back into the direction of a trauma bond. Another one is called See What You Made Me Do by Jess Hill and No Visible Bruises by Rachel Louise Snyder. These books are so necessary. They show how abuse is upheld by systems, not just individuals, right? They talk about policing and courts and media narratives and the way women are completely scrutinized constantly just for surviving. And they also talk about the reality that leaving can increase danger, which we need to talk about. We can't push that aside. Everybody says just leave, like it's safe to do that. And all of the work that these women have written aligns perfectly with a lot of the work done by Evan Stark on coercive control. A lot of women feel really validated by reading these books because you finally see why you weren't protected. The system didn't protect you, your husband sure didn't protect you. And naming this truth is so important because it's going to help you stop blaming yourself for a system that has failed you and will continue to fail you until we see change. Okay, another phenomenal book, Run Like Hell by Dr. Nadine Macaluso. It speaks directly to the women who loved somebody so destructive. Dr. Macaluso is actually a psychologist, but she's also the ex-wife of Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. Hopefully you've seen the movie, okay? This dynamic played out right on the big screen. And one of the most helpful concepts in her book is mind mapping. It's how abusers collect information about you over time, and then they strategically use it against you in the relationship. And that understanding can feel really unsettling, unnerving, but it's also very freeing because it explains why the abuse felt so targeted. I've interviewed her. Her work is grounded. It's survivor-centered. She's absolutely amazing. Her book helps people understand why separation feels like withdrawal and why the bond doesn't just disappear because the relationship ends. Now, this wouldn't be a list unless we include Dr. Ramani Diversala. In her book, It's Not You. She offers so much validation, but she doesn't dilute anything. Dr. Ramani names emotional abuse really clearly. She doesn't pretend empathy will fix it. In early 2025, actually appeared as an expert panelist alongside her in a docufiction movie called I Love You, My Narcissist. It's coming out sometime in 2026. We'll see when. And that project reflects the same clarity that this book is going to give you. Please read this book. It helps women stop reframing chronic disrespect as some kind of communication issue. It's going to take self-doubt and replace it with pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is huge. It stabilizes your nervous system because finally, all of this crap has a name. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Dr. Lindsay Gibson. It helps connect a lot of the early emotional neglect to adult relationship patterns. It's going to give you a lot of the why, right? It explains why emotionally unavailable relationships can feel familiar. Maybe not good, but comfortable, familiar. And it does this without shame and blame, which is so common for women. I'm telling you, you're going to feel relief after reading her book. It's going to explain why you overfunction, why you doubt yourself. And this is so important because that sort of continuity is going to help dissolve the belief that something is wrong with you, because that's not true. Trauma and Recovery by Judith Herman is also really foundational. I found it like a little bit harder of a read. It's a little bit heavier, but it places trauma in a social context, right? It's not like a personal flaw of yours. It connects individual harm to power and silence and systemic failure. Her work shaped how trauma is understood globally. So I really encourage you to get through that book. It's not light, not at all, but it's honest. And honesty is actually so important. It's what allows healing to move forward while you're dismantling this fantasy of who he was. Now, I want to also just mention some books that didn't kind of make my top list, but they're really still worth knowing about. The Betrayal Bond by Patrick Carnes, The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, Attached, The Body Keeps Score, Narcissistic Abuse by Vanessa Reiser. You don't need to read everything, okay? One book at the right moment can actually really change everything. Listen, after reading all of these books, getting 7 certifications and working with thousands of women, I noticed there was still kind of a gap, right? Understanding doesn't always help at 3 a.m. when the trauma bond is still alive and well. So I wrote into that gap. The Trauma Bond Recovery Journal and Rebuilding After a Trauma Bond are guided journals that I wrote with prompts that are kind of designed to help loosen the trauma bond in real time. Rebuilding After a Trauma Bond, the self-love journal, it focuses on rebuilding your identity after escape. These books were kind of written for people who don't really want to journal, but it gives you prompts. It helps you really process this and work things through. The next one is Narcissism Unmasked. That's like a handbook that translates over 125 abuse tactics into plain language so you can see exactly what they're doing and why. Surviving to Thriving is the last one that lays out the 6 emotional blocks that keep women stuck. You don't have to read everything. You don't have to rush through all of this. Like I said, the right tool at the right time is enough. And if my work maybe fits where you are, whether it's through my books or private sessions or group programs or my monthly membership called She Rises Collective, it's there for you. Please hit subscribe and I'll catch you in the next video.